Welcome to the With Mama Bear podcast, episode 28. I'm your host, Sarah Yacoub. Today's topic, the federal COVID stimulus package. It's almost Christmas, everyone. Are your presents wrapped? Mine certainly aren't. Good thing we have a little bit more time. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the relief, or what was supposed to be relief, for working families. As COVID-19 rages on to the detriment of our health and economy, the federal government, largely obstructed and defined by Mitch McConnell, has been grossly inadequate in responding to the realities of this pandemic or the needs of hardworking American families. Has Donald Trump or congressional Republicans gone to bat for America, frontline workers, our children? No. Has Donald Trump or congressional Republicans done anything to meaningfully address our housing crisis and the impending homelessness that we can expect from this pandemic? No. So what have they been doing? Where have they been plugging in their social capital? Cue in the 3 Martini lunch. Of course, this isn't something that Donald will advertise at one of his rallies, where he lies to everyone and pretends like he is one of the people. But Donald personally lobbied to ensure that any COVID relief package includes a tax break for corporations to cover the full cost of any, quote, business meal from their federal taxes. What does that mean? That means taxpayers, hardworking Americans, are paying for the steaks and martinis of gluttonous fat cats at their gluttonous business lunches. In case you're wondering, yes, the concept of, quote, business meals is one that is widely abused and exploited. Let's look at just one local example. One local realtor collected thousands of dollars a month in alimony and child support as though indigent, based on claims of indigency, even though that realtor made over $200,000 a year and well over $100,000 the year prior. When it came time for the child support hearing, breakfast with the kids at a restaurant was among that which was used to reduce that realtor's income, as a, quote, business expense. Currently, the law isn't much better, as corporations get to deduct 50% of their gluttony off of the backs of working families. But even that was not enough for Donald Trump and Senate Republicans. They are demanding that taxpayers cover their 3 Martini lunches in full. Worse, they refuse to agree to any COVID relief for working families unless and until their 3 Martini lunches were covered. What about the upward of 30 million Americans who are under or unemployed because of COVID-19? $600. Not even enough to cover the cost of 1 month's rent of the average 1-bedroom apartment in America. Not even enough to cover food for a family of 4 for that month. $600 is what the uber wealthy think is a lot of money for working or impoverished families. Let's dive into what other countries are doing for their people. Economist Robert Reich took a look at pandemic relief by country as a function of the percentage of one's wages. Japan is paying up to 100% of lost wages. The Netherlands, 90%. Germany, 87%. The UK, 80%. Canada, 75%. Where does the United States fall in all of this? 0%. We are not giving people a monthly stipend that even begins to cover any of their lost wages. Countries throughout the world, countries with substantially less wealth than the United States, are giving their people monthly checks to stay afloat while we conquer this pandemic. We should all be asking ourselves, why do Donald Trump and congressional Republicans not value Americans, particularly working families in America, the way other governments in other countries value their people? America is, after all, the richest nation in the world. What is the problem? We as a nation spend $740 billion, that is billion with a B, on the military where there is no war. The Pentagon alone spends more than $2 billion, that is billion with a B, a day. Gluttonous fat cat politicians like Ron Johnson joined congressional Republicans and Donald Trump in giving corporations that who are already not paying their fair share as compared to hardworking Americans a $2 trillion tax cut. Yes, that's all off of the backs of American working families. Did you know that unless President-elect Biden and the Congress reverse course, anyone making under $75,000 a year will see their taxes increase for 2021? But hey, as long as those Republicans lie to us and say it's the Democrats who are raising our taxes, we continue on as rubber stamp voters, right? Identity politics strikes again. Did you know we have a tax deduction for yachts and private jets? Yep, working families help subsidize yachts and private jets for those wealthy enough to own yachts and private jets. Economist Robert Reich found that in this country we have 8 million people living in poverty, 19 million at risk of eviction, and 26 million people who are going hungry. As reported by Dr. Feigelding, 54 million Americans struggled with hunger this year. That is a 45% increase from 2019. Food banks are now experiencing a 60% increase in need. How many of those Americans who are hungry or living in poverty are working full-time? How many of those Americans are children? How many are pregnant women? Oh, but please, single-issue voters, tell me more about how Republican politicians actually give a rat's ass about unborn babies. I'll wait. When dealing with such large numbers, it's hard to conceptualize what all of this actually means. Let's break it down to a context that is more approachable. Jeff Bezos, owner of Amazon, could give every Amazon employee, estimated to be roughly 876,000 people, a $100,000 pandemic bonus and still have more money than he did prior to the start of this pandemic. 32 of the world's biggest corporations have watched their profits increase by $109 billion. Again, that is billion with a B, in 2020. Did you know that Republican politicians and Donald Trump made it so that megachurches, like the one run by perhaps the pinnacle of gluttonous fat cats, Joel Osteen, could receive $4.4 million in PPP? How many small businesses run by hardworking Americans working to get by and stay afloat during this pandemic heard, "No, sorry, we ran out"? Joel Osteen lives in the very definition of self-indulgent gluttony. He makes his living implicitly inviting others to give their money to the church, while he defines himself as the church and hoards wealth accordingly. As a Christian, it really is disgusting, manipulative, wrong, and quite frankly, the opposite of the faith and its humility that I know and love. Joel Osteen's church pays no taxes. He exploits the otherwise good policy that allows churches and places of faith to be a positive addition to the community. And yet, despite the obvious lack of need, the lack of contribution to the very tax resources used to provide PPP, taxpayers paid out over $4 million for Joel Osteen's megachurch. But what about the deficit? If we pay Americans $2,500 a month per family, that which we see in other countries, will that not be the end of the world? If the one-time payment is $1,200 instead of $600, would that not be an insurmountable difference? The short answer? No. Why? Well, a few reasons. For one, the difference between a $600 check and a $1,200 check makes little actual difference when it comes to the realities of and overcoming the deficit. Second, we're in the middle of a crisis, and right now people and businesses above all else need to survive while we get a handle on COVID-19. My dad described it perfectly. We place people on a ventilator to buy them time for medicine and their body to conquer the virus. We do not remove the ventilator prematurely, citing the value of saving money on electricity, with the plan to revitalize their corpse once the virus is under control. Americans need the support to stay in their homes and keep their businesses from closing. Letting millions of Americans become homeless and hundreds of thousands of small businesses close would be like taking a patient off of the ventilator to save on electricity, thinking we can revive them later. We can't. The support buys us time while we get COVID under control. That support also serves another function. Give working families money, and they will spend it. Infusing money into local economies throughout the nation is the kindling to the fire we need as an economy to hold on through this pandemic. Handing out our tax resources to the corporations and those already hoarding wealth in this country is an invitation to seeing that money disappear into offshore bank accounts, not infused into the American economy. Shocking, right? Those already hoarding wealth can be expected to continue, wait for it, to hoard wealth. Bonkers, I know. I go back to a question previously posed, which is, why do Donald Trump and congressional Republicans care less about Americans than governments in other countries across the globe that are actually stepping up and in to support their people through this crisis? Episode 29 tomorrow. See you there.